welcome to the third quarterfinal match of the tournament. Today we are playing Dodge and Burn and we're up against Mr. Turtle playing Mind Maze. We mulligan a one-lander but keep a second hand without any red sources in it. And here's a turn 1 Phantasmal Bear from our opponent, which we don't have an answer for. We pass the turn and an attack puts us down to 18. And luckily no follow-up from our opponent. Here we decide to leave up counter spells instead of casting Compulsive Research. And a Veiled Sentry resolves, but Lord of the Unreal gets cancelled, making the Veiled Sentry a 3-3, and an attack puts us down to 16. Here we cast Compulsive Research, discarding Mnemonic Wall and our Draining Welk as they are the most expensive, and we do hit the mountain. Here our opponent puts us down to 11 after an attack, and casts another Veiled Sentry and an Illusionary Servant. So now we have the opportunity to cast Electrolyze targeting the two illusions, but we decide to do this on our opponent's turn, so the second Veiled Sentry doesn't get to attack us yet. So before any damage happens, we target the bear and the servant, and Electrolyze Wolf Fizzle so we don't get to draw a card, and the remaining attacker puts us down to 8. Now we have double red available, so we decide to keep our Volcanic Geyser and our counterspell up, together with our other instant speed spells. And before any damage happens, we try to Volcanic Geyser the Sentry, but Cryptic Command counters our Geyser and draws our opponent another card, and the attack puts us down to 2 life. So at this point we don't have any out left, so we try to cast our Electrolyze on the 2 sentries, but we don't even hit the second red to kill ourselves with our Volcanic Fallout. So Mind Maze is up 1 game to 0. We do some heavy duty sideboarding, cutting the most expensive cards in our deck for more removal and more sweepers. In game 2 we mulligan another 1-lander and a 6-lander, going down to 4 lands and 2 counterspells. And here we draw a peak, which we will keep up by playing out our island first. And our opponent does resolve a Lord of the Unreal, but we take a look at our opponent's hand and see that it does contain a Phantasmal Image, an Illusionary Servant and a Gossamer Phantasm. And here we keep up our counter spells because we don't want to see a Phantasmal Image resolve with a Lord on the table. An attack puts us down to 18, and we do remand the Illusionary Servant. We play out our Terramorphic Expanse here, and an attack puts us down to 16. The Gossamer Phantasm will resolve, but the Phantasmal Image does get remanded to buy us some more time. We didn't get to activate Terramorphic Expanse, which means we cannot cast Starstorm to wipe the board this turn. Instead, we'll have to keep up our Memory Lapse and pass the turn. Our opponent plays the Illusionary Servant, which gets Memory Lapsed back to our opponent's library, but Phantasmal Image does resolve, copying the Lord of the Unreal, and an attack puts us down to 10, but here a Starstorm does wipe the board clean, and the Illusionary Servant plus a Phantasmal Bear hit the battlefield. We get a little greedy by casting Peak instead of wiping the board again, and an attack puts us down to 5 life. But our opponent does cast another threat, which will get wiped with the second Starstorm. So now our opponent is left with 1 card in hand, while we have 2 counterspells up, and no play from our opponent, while we draw a Sulphurous Blast, which is another sweeper, but Snapcaster Mage gets cast end of turn, no flashback, just a 2-power attacker. So we let it resolve, and before it deals any damage we cast Sulphurous Blast to try and take it out, but our opponent casts Unsummon targeting Snapcaster Mage. We try to counter the Unsummon, but our opponent has a Twin Cast, which will target the Unsummon. So we let the Twin Cast resolve, and we will remand the copy of the Unsummon, so our opponent doesn't get it back in his hand, and the Sulphurous Blast will resolve. Here we draw a Banefire, which will be our win condition. A Lord of the Unreal gets remanded just to draw us another card, but it will resolve, but luckily a Electrolyze will kill it and draws another card. So now we have 3 burn spells in hand and no threats from our opponent. Which doesn't last for long as a Gossamer Phantasm hits the battlefield. Here we play out Terramorphic Expanse to filter out some more lands. And we pass the turn with Sulphurous Blast up, which we will cast before any damage happens, putting us down to 1, and our opponent has a follow-up Illusionary Servant. this volcanic fallout will kill us, so we cannot cast it. So only Banefire and Searing Spear are alive. And we will use Searing Spear to take out the Illusionary Servant. Unfortunately, our opponent has a follow-up Divination, drawing him 2 cards, while we keep drawing lands. And another Illusionary Servant will have to be answered with our Banefire, which was our win condition. So at this stage in the game we would really like to see a draw spell, land go from our opponent, and here's a Compulsive Research, but it gets counterspelled. And still nothing on either side, we keep drawing lands. Land go, still nothing. And here we draw another useless sweeper which we cannot cast, and here's a Divination followed by a Glaze from our opponent, which turns into a 4/4 illusion whenever he casts a creature spell. Still lands, and here we draw a counterspell which doesn't prevent the Glaze from activating. And here we draw a Opportunity, and end of turn we try to cast our Opportunity, but our opponent has a hard cost, a Force of Will to counter it, and another land. And here our opponent casts a Lord of the Unreal. We counter it, but the Glaze is active and our sweepers will not kill the 4/4 without killing us. So Mind Maze wins 2 games to 0, and it will advance to the second semi-final, where it will face the winner of Enter the Dracomancer and Sliver Hive. So stay tuned for the last quarterfinal match, but for now I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.